The town of Plainville. Established in 1721 at the geographical center of Connecticut.
Okay. We'll begin. Will we resume our work on the 2019 budget this evening? We have, at this point, gotten through most of it with the exception of approval of a final number, correct? That's where we are?
So Department 840.
The Department 840 interfund transfers out and capital funds. So,
Madam Chair.
yeah, well, okay, go ahead. I was going to make a comment, but.
Oh, go ahead.
All right.
Go ahead.
All right. Since our last meeting, we received an email from Mr. Lee and a couple of other emails regarding the funding for some fire equipment that we had been discussing throughout our deliberations. And maybe it would be a good point to just get some input on that. And then from there, we can go ahead and do whatever we have to do to finalize the budget. So is that something you were going to speak to?
Yeah, why don't we get the additional information first and go from there?
Okay,
Robert?
at the end of the last work session, the council requested that staff take a look at whether the possible bonding of 2 fire trucks could fit into the town's debt service plan going forward without exceeding what had previously been, I guess, amended as a ceiling for the debt service line item going forward for the foreseeable future, that being $4.4 million. I sent you some information. I spoke to not only our financial advisor, but the bond counsel as well, and Rob and I worked together. And what we've determined is on the first page that we had given you had the debt service schedule going forward. And what it shows that within, by fiscal year 23, which is 5 years out, the debt service should drop approximately by $2.5 million. That $2.5 million is roughly equivalent to $30 million in additional long-term borrowing that could be done, assuming a 3% interest rate. And I also gave you a listing of at least what I see as the possibility for long-term borrowing projects, that being the Wheeler Elementary School, high school parking lot, the road bond Phase 1, all 3 of those have been approved to date. The fire truck's future at 2.1, and the road, and perhaps a second road bond I would see in the next within the next 5 years. That adds up to $22.6 million. So, based upon that information, there's sufficient capacity to absorb the 2. If the decision is made to bond 2 fire trucks at $2.1 million, there's sufficient capacity to be able to handle that in the next 5 years. And in fact, the debt service continues to drop off. And even going the following 2 years, the actual decrease would be $3.2 million, which represents about $39 million in capacity for bonding going forward and holding it to 4.4. So we've come to the, it's clear that there's that's a route that would stay in concert with what was previously determined as a goal of the town council as far as the debt service line item was concerned. You also received a copy of an email that was sent to me from Barry Bernabe, who is our financial advisor, talking about where he sees rates. We see them gradually going higher, so the sooner you borrow, probably the better off you be. He still feels comfortable with 3%, but I even gave you some analysis if it happened to go up to 4%. So unless you have any specific questions, that's kind of the long and the short of it. We did give you some information on what that debt service schedule would look like over a 20-year period. There's one scenario here that we gave you with respect to, borrowings in terms of the timing of borrowings, and really that's, kind of administrative in terms of when we would time these things so that we would, be able to maintain that $4.4 million level.
Okay.
All right?
Okay, thanks for doing that. Does anybody have any questions regarding the information we received from our last meeting in terms of our borrowing capacity and some of the things we're looking at to do for the next fiscal year? No?
We do know that we are doing a permanent borrowing next September, and, right now it would be at the very least the road bond at $4.9 million. It could include a fire truck if that was approved. It could include some borrowing for the Wheeler Elementary School, depending upon what happens at the state level as far as that project is concerned as well, as far as, guaranteeing that project will be, funded at the 64 and change percentage that we've been promised.
Okay. And we also discussed very quickly the timing, if we were to go forward for a referendum for this fire apparatus, the timing of when we could get that done, the soonest we could get it done would be in June?
Yes, I spoke to bond counsel today with regards to a schedule. We would introduce the ordinance, if that was the decision, it would be at your next meeting, 2 weeks from now. You would have a public hearing in your first meeting in May, which would be May 7th.
Okay.
And set the referendum date, which could be the either of the last two Tuesdays in June. So either, believe one is the 19th and the other is the 26th.
Okay.
I'm usually wrong on those dates, but I think it's somewhere in that ballpark.
Okay. So the scheduling is something that's, we could accommodate
Yes.
if we make our decision
Yes.
tonight?
Yes,
Okay.
that can be accommodated.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, that's, I thought what I wanted to have out first. Mr. Wizarko, do you have a comment?
My only comment is after looking at everything and receiving the information, from where I am, go back to what I presented the last time we met on the budget. I would look to reduce line items within the operational budgets by 75,000. I would add 75,000 to the capital budget, move the utility 2 money over to the engine 1. And we would eliminate the pickup truck from the capital as well. As far as I'm concerned, I still think that's the best way to go with the priority that I think we all feel engine 1 needs. They have done the work, or, most of the spec work is already completed. I think it's something we should go forward with through the budget process. And bonding wise, I do think, we should look at bonding for the tower and even engine 3. And I think the advantage to going out to bonding is, as finance director, the town manager have pointed out, we do have capacity to absorb that kind of bonding in our debt service. But it also gives us a little bit of time to plan out the tower vehicle as well as engine 3. Since it does take, I believe, 1 year to 2 years to spec out some of these things, we wouldn't, not that maybe I do feel like we're kind of rushing into a referendum here, but bottom line is I just feel engine 1 is a priority. We should put it in the budget. If people aren't satisfied with that, they certainly have the right to vote no on the budget and give us feedback why they voted no. And I would look to bond the tower and engine 3 as we go forward. And I have a spider right in front of me. I'm just going to move that.
Yeah, I was going to tell you, but funnier if I didn't.
Huh?
I was going to tell you,
It's coming down.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of cool.
Engine 3, so I'm looking at the fire department's 5-year capital improvement plan. I do not see engine 3 on there at all. So I'm wondering, it's not even on the 5-year plan, engine 3.
And I think it should be.
Oh, well,
Personally,
it's not here, so I'm dealing with what we have.
Yep,
right
no,
now.
and I understand, because I looked
Okay.
as well.
Well, it's not here, so. Okay, any other comments, points of discussion about the fire apparatus?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'm going to have to disagree with Councilman Wazorko. I really think that even the finance director and all the information that we have, the bonding is the way to go. If we're going to start putting fire trucks, which are very expensive, into the bonding, then why separate them out and have one go into the capital budget and then other ones go into the bonding? They should all start being shifted over to bonding now. I know one of the emails that we had gotten made a comment about why is the buildings and grounds truck in capital and the fire trucks are going to bonding. One is a $26,000 truck. The other trucks are $600,000 and more. So it's like apples and oranges. It's not the same thing. And those types of large expenditures are things that we should use bonding for, so that we don't have to keep increasing our budget year after year after year to make sure that we have the right kind of trucks and the right kind of equipment for our department. So I still think that bonding is the way to go for the trucks and for the fire trucks. And I don't think that the referendum would have any problems passing, because I think that this town always supports our police and fire department when they need new equipment when it comes to the referendum. So I don't think, we would all support it. So that's how I feel.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, Madam Chair.
Mr.
I have
Alpine?
a comment or a question. Obviously, if we did go to referendum, we would like it to pass, but if it doesn't, what would we be prepared to do at that point? Because that's quite honestly, it's not as big a reason for me, but, certainly if a referendum doesn't pass, we kind of get left behind the 8 ball here with regards to Engine 1. Are we willing as a council to, come up with a plan B, so to speak, or just a contingency plan if it doesn't pass?
Well, I don't have a contingency plan right now for if it doesn't pass. I prefer to think it will pass. I would like to send that message out to the community that this is something we need to do and that it will be supported by our community. We were able to, last year, have a rather large referendum on a school pass fairly easily. And the reason for that is because the community came together. It wasn't just the Wheeler School families. The entire school system came together. The schools from all over Plainville joined together to make sure everybody turned out that could vote and voted and helped pass that referendum. Now, our fire equipment is important to everybody, not just to certain segments of our population. This is important to the safety of our entire town. So I couldn't imagine that this wouldn't pass. I'm having a hard time having that negative thinking. It's a $2.1 million versus some of these other very large referendums that have passed. And I think once it's explained to the community, they're going to understand it perfectly and certainly support it. So as an alternative plan, I think if it doesn't pass, which I'm going to stop using those words, we'll have to reconvene and look at it again. Just as we would have had to done if Wheeler School didn't pass. You'd reconvene, look at the plan, and think about it again. But right now, I am firmly convinced that this has a very good chance of success, and we should go forward with that type of thinking, not what if it fails, but how to get it to pass.
All right, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just a follow-up question. This might be for the town manager. What options would we have available outside of a budget process or a referendum approval for spending money or spending, if we decided to try and fund Engine 1? What's the process outside of those two scenarios?
One would be an additional appropriation.
Could you say that again?
One would be an additional appropriation.
For how much? The whole amount?
Well, it depends. I mean, it depends on what you could certainly decide to fund, 1/4 of it, 1/2 of it, the whole thing. I mean, that would be up to the council to decide if and when you needed to make that decision. Certainly, if you made the commitment to fund a portion of it, it would be with the understanding that, future years in the capital improvement budget would have to be, funded as well. You understand what I mean by that?
I do.
Okay. The other option is is to perhaps identify some projects in the capital improvement plan that hadn't been gone forward yet and say, well, we're going to delay those and substitute this in and push those back to the following year, a portion or several of them. Obviously, no, if the referendum is held before July 1st, we won't be spending monies on, out of the capital improvement or committing to anything unless, the council gives approval. And so everything would be on the table as far as whatever's in there if the council directed staff not to,
Okay.
to substitute. That could be a way to fund a portion or all of it. Or at least, the first year payment that we're talking about now. Those are two options that come off the end. We could even, we could authorize some bond anticipation notes as well, which is short-term borrowing.
Yep, yep.
Well, there may be some revenues that come in above and beyond what we anticipated, but again, that would be the additional appropriations, process. You wouldn't be directing
Yes.
revenues to go against, you just recognize that there's some revenues there, but it would be an additional appropriation process.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, I also would agree that we really should begin the lease purchase of engine, replacement engine number 1 this year as part of the capital budget. By all means, I do believe that we should look at bonding as a method of financing some of our future costs that we talked about, such as the tower piece of equipment. But I think, this is going to be entering its 30th year of service. The parts are proprietary. I think it's a matter of public safety. I think it's a matter of fire personnel safety. And I think we should make the decision on this one piece of equipment as part of our FY19 budget. And I think that's definitely the better way to go, and then to take a little more time with developing a plan with possibly financing through bonding some future acquisitions. But I think we're going into crunch time with this, and I think it's better to get it done and get it done as part of the budget.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
the time frame would be the same. If we pass it at referendum, the time frame for ordering the truck would be the same as if we put it into the budget that doesn't start until July. So I don't understand how it's becomes more of an emergency by putting it in a referendum. I don't understand that thought process.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just to clarify that, Deb, I was thinking more of the possible outcome that the referendum doesn't pass. I don't, totally disagree with the optimism of our chairperson, but it's always a possibility. We can't guarantee the outcome of the referendum. We have to remember, it would be the second referendum within a 6-month period in which we're also going to have the all-day budget vote. So I don't think we can assume it's a guarantee either, and that would concern me, because if it did get voted down, then you would have, things would take longer to resolve.
Anybody else?
Yes. We've talked about several different options tonight. The town manager mentioned some. We talked about going out to referendum versus putting it in the budget that goes to the all-day vote. And from all of that discussion, it seems like there is ample agreement that we need to replace engine 1. So, I don't know why we have to kick the can down the road, even if it's only a short road, or take a chance that it goes to referendum and it doesn't pass, and then we have to, backpedal a little bit and try and figure out how we're going to put the truck into the budget at that point in time. But, if the premise is that we're in agreement, we're going to get the truck, it's just a matter of how we're going to pay for it. The only way to guarantee we're going to get the truck is to put it in the budget. And there is ample precedent also for putting capital items into the budget. We did it with the communications for the police. We did it with the communications for the fire department. We did it with the rescue apparatus. We've done it with a number of different large purchases. I believe we did it with the LED streetlights, where we pay for things up front in our budget, and then we try to get it back over the long haul, or we just do a lease purchase instead of bonding and paying for it after the purchase. So I think that there is certainly precedent for that repeatedly over the last few years. So again, with the premise that you're going to do it, and the precedent that we have set in the way we've paid for previous purchases, it just seems to me the only way to ensure that the fire department gets the equipment that they need is to include it in the capital.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
There is more of a difference of one is a sure thing and one would have to go to referendum, is that putting it into the budget is going to affect the budget for the next 4 or 5 years. And bonding doesn't affect the budget at all. It actually helps it, so it's a big difference to me, as far as I can say.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to add to what Deb said there about the effect on this truck on the budget over the next 4 years. I applaud Councilman Wazorko finding that extra $75,000 that we needed outside of the other truck. However, there's still the issue of $150,000 over the next 3 years impacting our capital budget. That's not something that I would like to see, considering we have a lot of other things in our capital budget throughout the next few years. I would like to see the 2 trucks go into the debt service plan so that they can get out to referendum and we can get these guys the vehicles they need. I don't see it as something that needs to be in the capital budget, and I think that the debt service is the smartest way to go fiscally for our budget at a longer term, considering, or as opposed to just this year.
Anybody else wish to opine?
Yeah, Madam Chair, just a clarification. If we go to referendum and bond an item, there's still an effect on the budget, correct? I mean, I'm just trying to clarify what Councilman Tompkins said is, debt service affects the budget. If we bond something, it affects the budget. It's just over a longer, in fact, if anything, it affects the budget over a longer term. I understand it's probably not $150,000 a year over 4 years, but
Depends on
you understand what I'm
it depends on
trying-
it depends on how you define affects the budget. If we're saying that that holding the debt service line item at $4.4 million, and if we don't go over, then it doesn't affect the budget. Obviously, money gets spent, and, in
Yeah, I
theory,
mean-
every
we have to pay
expenditure,
for it. It
every
gets paid
expenditure
for.
impacts the budget in some way, shape, or form.
okay.
So it really depends on how you define affects the budget.
Well, it does affect the budget, because without it, debt service would be lower. I mean, I just want to make sure I understood that correctly before we moved on. The only other question I have is, I really don't think the referendum's the way to go. However, if we could come to some kind of consensus that, should the referendum fail, that we would go ahead and fund this in a different manner this year, I could certainly, compromise to something to that effect. However, I just worry if this doesn't pass, and what do we do? Because I don't think we can wait another year on Engine 1. I believe one way or another, and I can't remember who said it, but I think we all agree that Engine 1 needs to be addressed. If a referendum goes down, we still have that need to be addressed. And if we can get some consensus that we'll move forward in another capacity just for Engine 1, I'm not, at that point, the referendum failed, the tower, I think that would have to come back at another time, but, that still leaves Engine 1 as a priority. And I'd also just like to know, if you were going to referendum, what do you do with the capital as of now? If you're going to referendum, what would your capital look like? What would your bottom line budget? What changes would you be looking to make, if any, other than what's on the bottom line at this point?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I could get behind that idea of if the referendum fails, which I don't think really anybody up here sees it actually failing, but I could get behind the idea of funding this truck if there was a failure. And to add to that and respond to Councilman Wazorko, I think that the idea would be to continue with the town manager's recommended capital.
Okay. I would say that I would be willing to look at if it failed. And I hate to keep saying that because we're putting failure out there in front of success. So I don't want to keep talking about failures. However, if you need a certain amount of comfort in order to agree to go to a referendum for these pieces of equipment, I would be open to discussion. And the reason I'm probably holding back a little bit is because I truly do not know what the state of Connecticut is going to do. I really don't know. And for me to say, yeah, I'll do this, or yes, I will do that, without knowing where our state is even going to end up at the end of this fiscal year, never mind what's going to happen in the next 2 years with a $4.5 billion deficit, I can't commit a number, but I will certainly agree to discuss, if that helps.
Me personally, no, that doesn't help me.
Well, I mean,
We've been discussing this for 3
I
weeks.
could say absolutely, I'm not going to talk about it till next budget cycle, but I am not saying that.
yeah,
I'm
no,
saying I would.
you absolutely have your right to your
I'll be open to a
opinion,
variety
but
of
I don't have to like it.
suggestions that we may not have even heard tonight. But, once again, if I may continue, we reached out to our financial advisor, who advises us on all of our investing issues. And he very affirmatively said that these items should be in our long-term capital plan. He said that's an appropriate place to put them. He also cautioned that waiting to do these things, interest rates have been increasing over the past year for those borrowings, and they will continue to increase in the next year or perhaps beyond for those types of funding options. So I do put a lot of weight in terms of what he said and what his recommendations are. He certainly knows better than I about borrowing and what should be appropriately put into our long-term plan. So I am going to agree with him at this point and say that's probably what we should do right now. With all the unknowns of funding from the state of Connecticut and a variety of other things we don't know about, I believe that it should go there. I believe that this community will definitely support that referendum, and I hope we can get a majority at least to go forward with that kind of thinking and take the advice from the experts so that we're doing things in the proper manner, not just what our interpretation of what we think should be. So, does anybody else have anything to offer, or anybody else want to go along with the funding plan? And if things don't turn out the way we think, we will revisit as soon as possible.
I do have one other comment. Based on what you just said, you said that you would consider, if we send the purchase of the fire engine to referendum and the referendum fails, you would then look at it, but you have concerns about what the state might or might not be doing and how that might affect our local budget. And that is precisely why we need to do this in our budget as opposed to pushing it down the road. If we do that, we've been putting this truck off for 4 years. Every year it got pushed back. We agreed with the fire department that we were going to do a lease purchase on the rescue apparatus, and the council at that time gave them their word that when we were done paying for that rescue apparatus, we would replace engine 1. And that was 4 years ago. We've made the last payment on the rescue apparatus, and now is the time to stop kicking the can down the road.
Well, much has happened since 4 years ago, and things are not what they were, and they're not what we had planned on, and our financial condition is not what it was 4 years ago, which is why we need to be adaptable to look at different ways to take care of some of these items. And a promise is certainly something I take seriously. However, I can also say that if unforeseen circumstances, completely unexpected things happen, then I would hope people could understand that the financial condition of what happened to Plainville in this past year with $2 million less of revenue, and we don't know what's going to happen down the road, people would understand my reticence at some of these ideas. So nothing is the same as 4 years ago, nothing. So I would like to ask if we can have a a consensus? Can we have a vote? I don't need a vote. I just want to know who is willing to go along with having these two pieces of equipment sent out for referendum, working very hard to get that to pass. We will all participate in that. Everybody is going to get out there and make it work. And should this not be successful, that we will, as soon as we have an answer, reconvene immediately to discuss other options. Is that agreeable to everybody?
Yes.
I'll say
Kind of what you
depends.
said.
It depends what we do with the rest of the budget. You know, if we're looking to knock capital down still, or, you know, we're looking to knock some money off the operational side, I'm not in support of that. You know, if you want to go to referendum and leave everything else intact, yeah, I would consider that.
I could do that. I could do that.
You know, with assurances that we will look at other ways of funding if a referendum gets defeated.
We would certainly meet and talk about that. Any other thoughts? Anybody else?
Madam Chair?
All right, so if there are no other comments, maybe we should get into the business of making a motion and see where that ends up, if nobody else has any preliminary thoughts about this.
I think Christopher wanted one more thing.
Just, I was gonna.
We're going to wait until we get into our meeting anyway. We'll do that at our regular meeting.
Could I just have
Or do you
a
wanna do it
2-minute
now?
recess to get water?
Beg your pardon?
A 2-minute recess to get water?
Okay. Sure.
Oh, you should vote on it first.
Motion to recess. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
2 minutes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else want something?
I'm good. So they wanted to
Guess I could refill.
say up to $75,000 savings.
I don't know.
I'm okay with that. Okay. Yeah, I'm okay.
I'm dying. I'm dying.
Are you okay with that?
Yes, I am.
You're not even at the worst part
And
yet.
it's not really 75, it's really, we're just leaving the truck in there, which we wanted to
Right,
do anyway.
it's
It's
like
really
50.
49.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Ty, what
totally
time's the
fine with
tip
that.
off?
So you'd leave.
9:20. And I'm a huge go blue. Let's go. I was dying when they were losing on Saturday.
Okay, thank you.
All
I
set?
think we should do it. As long as the.
So we still have the 75,000. That's not gonna be a surprise. Instead of
Back in
not-
session here.
Would have
Okay,
been-
so, are we at the point to make a motion to approve this, the budget at this point in time to close out our work session? Is everybody ready to do that?
Yes.
Crickets.
Yes?
Yes.
Everybody's ready to go
Yes.
forward?
Yep.
Okay,
Madam Chair.
yes.
Motion to approve Department 840 in the amount of $1,561,613.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion?
I don't know. Hold on, Madam Chair, I can't find the page. Okay.
It's
H9.
H9.
Oh, she wrote it down. Yeah.
And so essentially, this motion, we are funding everything the town manager approved.
$1,561,613.
Yes.
Yes. We have not changed the capital. We have not changed the operating.
Well, the operating, that'd be a separate.
Well, you found a little bit of money. We could have
We're not gonna-
actually
we're not
gone
gonna
back
touch
and
that.
tweaked
We're
some
not-
of those
we're gonna
things,
leave
but
it.
in the interest of making something happen tonight, we're not going to do that.
Okay.
I have a motion, I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes 6-1, am I correct? 1 nay, 6 ayes? Okay. Is there anything else we need to do with the budget at this point in time? I know we have a motion after our public hearing and our meeting tonight. Is there anything we need to do in terms of the work sessions?
I think that you should recommend an overall budget for the general government and an overall budget for the Board of Education. And after the public hearing, you may, reconsider that. That's what's on, new business. But as far as what's going to be presented to the public hearing this evening, I would recommend that you make a motion and finalize that. You may end up making the same motion later on in the meeting, but
Correct.
it'll be after the public hearing.
But we'll,
Rob
at
can
that
give you those
point,
two
have the
numbers if you
correct
like.
numbers.
Rob could give you those numbers if you like.
Yeah, what pages are they?
Do you need
Okay.
a few minutes, or you have it?
Yeah.
So what I would like is, you want the general government, debt service, and the Board of Ed? I mean, how do you want us to do this?
Well-
What's the general government number?
Just what you vote on, which is the general government, which includes debt service, and capital, and then the Board of Ed separately. There's two separate votes. So two different numbers for a total of the total town budget. Ready for the numbers?
I was gonna do it and then ask you if I'm right,
Go ahead.
okay?
All right.
That's, I'm very brave tonight.
I have a calculator.
Okay, so, the total is 53,187,074, correct? And that includes capital, debt service, Board of Ed operating, and town, oh, no, it's 60,000, sorry. You better tell me the numbers. I took the wrong
All right,
ones, so,
we'll take them one at a time, okay? General government, okay, which includes debt service and capital,
yep,
is $22,733,146.
yep.
Do you want the decreases and percentages and all those too, or increases? No, okay. Total Board of Ed budget is $37,322,912.
I don't mean to interrupt, but that's the same number we already approved, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, so general government, 22,733,146.
Correct.
Board of Education, 37,322,912.
Correct. For a total town budget of $60,056,058.
Okay. Okay, so, do you want a separate, let's make a motion for general government, then Board of Ed, so that we can
Did Board of
finish up these.
To do these.
Madam
numbers
Chair,
here.
motion to approve the general government budget in the amount of $22,733,146.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
6-1. Board of Education.
Madam Chair, I think we did that. Did we
We already
do-
did that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's really.
Oh, we did that one,
Really
okay.
only one
So
motion.
motion to approve the total budget of Board of Ed and general government in the amount of $60,056,058.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
6-1, again. Okay. So with that, we should be all set.
your
And they,
public hearing, yeah.
are these the numbers we're going to be using in our motion later in the evening?
Possibly, I mean, that's up to you. I mean, you have your public hearing first. And
I understand, we have a public hearing. No, no, I get it, we have a public
They
hearing.
could be, yes.
Okay, no, I get it, it's fine. Okay. All right, if there's no other budget work to take up, we will recess now until our meeting begins at 7 o'clock. Thank you.
We need to adjourn.